Hi. Welcome to Munro Live. We're welcoming Ricky Roy here on the podcast. And before I get into that, I want to just give a little background on myself. People may not know me. Paul Turnbull. I'm with Munro and Associates. Have been for over a year. And prior to that, I was a technical specialist at General Motors doing development of electric machines for all the electric vehicles that are coming out now. So that was my background. But now on Munro Live, we've been doing technical videos, mostly for whoever's interested, but largely a non-technical audience. And so when we heard an opportunity to speak with you, Ricky, I'm someone who's been doing technical videos or things with technical content for a broad audience for a long time. We were really excited about it. So, Ricky, would you mind introducing yourself and giving us maybe a little background on how you got into this business?
You bet, Paul. Really good to meet you, and thanks for having me on. I'm Ricky. I run the YouTube channel Two Bit da Vinci. We've been doing this since 2017, which, as you think about how the years have gone by, it's pretty wild. I had a friend recently tell me, if you think, for a YouTube channel, it seems like we've been doing this for so long, we should be better at this point. We should know what we're doing. But if you phrase it in the context of a startup, it's a young, burgeoning startup, right? So I've been trying to shift that mindset to think of it that way, because it's a difficult thing what we do. To your point, I really appreciate, Paul, the mention of covering technical content and trying to do it for people who don't have engineering degrees, because that's what most people are. And I do try to do that. It's difficult. It is difficult. You mentioned jargon. Engineers are notorious for just jargon. Everything is acronyms, and there's expressions to the point where nobody else would be able to understand. It's almost like a coded language. So I try really hard to push back against any kind of jargon and make sure that we have content that makes sense. I was a mechanical engineer. I studied mechanical engineering, graduated in 2006. Spent the first 6 years with the U.S. Navy as a engineer, aerospace engineer for the FA-18 Hornet program. From there, when the iPhone came out and the App Store came out, I made a shift over to software. Did that for about 10 years. Started the YouTube channel on the side, and then went full time in 2021, full time on YouTube, which still to this day sounds kind of crazy when I say it, but yeah.
Well, that's fantastic. Getting a chance to work on the FA-18, I'm sure you dove straight into the deep end on some of the highest tech, and working for military. Talk about acronyms. They kind of invented it. So yeah,
It is second to none when it comes to jargon and acronyms. I'll tell you that.
Yeah. So going from that world to picking topics that have a technical nature but are in the news recently, and then helping the rest of us understand what's going on behind the scenes that may not be obvious from the mainstream media take on it. And it can be really revealing to know what's going on in the background. And you do it on just a tremendous number of topics, things that from how we heat our swimming pool in the backyard, and to energy installations. So that it's Two Bit da Vinci is doing a great service to the rest of us to try to pull all that together. So when you do, how is it that you pick topics when you're looking at, to see what do you think will be of interest to people? How do you do that?
That is an excellent question. It is really tough. It's really tough, I think, to gauge where the world is headed and what people are looking for. But what we've found is, I think, when there is something in the news that is important, like for example, the plane crash involving the helicopter in DCA that happened a month ago, that to me was of personal interest because I fly out of that airport frequently. When I used to work for the Navy, the headquarters for the engineering wing is in Pax River, Maryland. So I'd fly through DCA frequently, and every time I had the same reaction, like, this seems kind of crazy that they allow this level of mixed civilian military activity, 2 miles from the Pentagon and 3 miles from the White House. It always seemed insane to me that we do this. So that video, that was kind of my underlying point, is we've had close calls, but this one was really tragic because it just feels like it could happen again at any time. And we'll see what the NTSB comes up with that. So those topics I think are interesting. I made a video, my best performing video of all time was the Ocean Gate video, where the news kind of does a disservice because it's so topical. It doesn't really get into any details. It's kind of, here's a thing, it's missing. Here's some people. They'll do the personal touch. Like, for example, a lot of the news coverage around the DCA crash was around the people. It was kind of a emotional story about it was ice skaters, right? And so they do the human element, but the engineering or the technical component is always very topical, barely talked about. So when we can talk about those things, we try to do that. The harder part is in between. Like, for example, this week, if there's nothing else going on of particular interest, then you have to try to find old stories. Maybe it's a little bit of history or some contextual thing that maybe is missed. We just made a video about the Canadian-U.S. energy trade wars and tariffs, and there's a lot to that. So and those videos, the hardest part is to really know, and the hard, honest answer is we're still trying to figure it out. We're still trying to figure out a good strategy in terms of frequency and topics. It is the hardest part. And with YouTube shifting and the world shifting, more distractions, more options for media content, I think that is something that will never change. Like, you'll have to keep evolving with the times and keep, on the forefront of what's happening.
Hey, Ricky, Eric, the Munro Live producer, I have a question. How many people are on your team? And then how long does it take you to produce a video, like start to finish?
So it's a good question. Eric, how's it going? It's always fun talking with Eric because I never see him, I feel like.
Yeah, I'm always off camera.
Yes. So we have a writer researcher who's a chemistry PhD, which comes in really handy for a lot of the stuff that we cover battery wise and things like that. And but he's not full time. He's part time, and his schedule is a little bit tricky sometimes. So if we have him, it really helps out. Otherwise, I'm the second writer researcher. We should probably find a third, and then we have 2 editors as well. That's kind of the makeup of the team. In terms of how long it takes to make videos, we used to have just one size fits all, and it took a long time. We'd make all these custom animations, and it would take us like a week of video editing, probably 2-3 days of research and writing. So with a team of this size, we could pull off barely a video a week. But what we've realized is not every video needs that level of attention. So we've kind of shifted our process. I have these, I don't know if you can see these like little HDMI cables on my desk, but I can bring in a tablet and a laptop, draw on the screen, kind of try to almost do the editing in real time and try to get videos out quickly, because the reality is a week to cover a mishap is just too long. You can't do that. So we kind of have 2 models of videos. So the shorter form, not shorter form, but the shorter effort videos, probably a day, including an editor and a writer. And then the longer form stuff is about a week.
Yeah, we find the same kind of thing, and that what can happen is if we've got a couple of videos that we've done that are, say, gears and bearings or something like that, where it's sort of timeless, but we'll end up with a few of those in the can that are sort of, as they say, waiting to be edited when there's time. And then there will be news stories. I mean, things that pop up that are fresh and need to get out there quickly while the iron's hot. And so poor Eric has competing interests to try to, people asking him, hey, when are we going to get that video out as quick as possible? And so we're in the business of benchmarking. We benchmark how people manufacture stuff. But so right now we're kind of doing a little benchmarking with how YouTube video is created and edited and put on the air. And so I really, really appreciate the intel.
And it's really important because people don't realize the underlying, in my kids' school, they did a little poll, and the number one job everybody wants to be when they grow up is YouTuber, which is insane to me, right? But I think what people see is the final product or the glamour, but there are a million decisions, to your point. And what makes it difficult for you guys, especially, is you guys are doing these large scale projects. You're disassembling a pack or something, and you might not be able to finish that video for 2 weeks because of some delay and some product or production hiccup. And so then you got to just, like you mentioned, just put it in the back burner, shift gears, try something else, and then come back to that. It's those shifts and shelving and unshelving. We go through the same thing based on feedback or reviews or travel or requirements. And yeah, it's a tough shuffle. It really is. It's a similar thing. Benchmarking is probably a good way to put it. But I think we should all be benchmarking. We should, whatever we do, we should try to find optimizations to be had.
Yeah, that is key. I mean, you shouldn't be always having to learn it for yourself when other people are out there learning it ahead of time. And so just figure out what they did and improve on it.
Well, speaking of benchmarking, who was your inspiration? Because when we started Munro Live, we took inspiration from Jerry Rig Everything, Engineering Explained, and a few other channels.
And yourself as well.
That's a good question.
In 2017, there weren't very many.
No, it was. There weren't very many. I think one of the channels that I really, really loved, and I had a chance actually to meet him recently, was Cold Fusion. If you've ever seen Cold Fusion, run by an amazing creator named Dagogo, who lives in Australia, and I was just there for the Everything Electric show, and I got a chance to meet with him, and we hung out and chatted several days, and he was one of them, because I think what he nailed so early on was what he wanted to do and what he wanted to be, and he's been able to just be consistent. I admire him because he's able to cover a wide variety of topics. One video is a bank collapse, and then the next is Boeing XYZ, and then it's like, a fraud or a Ponzi scheme, or he covers a wide variety of stuff. He's also a mechanical engineer, and I suspected as much because Sandy's a mechanical engineer, right?
Yeah.
So one thing I've noticed is all engineers are curious, but mechanical engineers in particular take that to another level. If I see something and I'll go down a rabbit hole for 2 days trying to figure out why it's built that way or how that works. And he clearly had that as well. I confirmed that he is a mechanical engineer, and I thought did a really nice job of setting his channel up to be to have enough breadth and also depth, and he can cover different things and not get pigeonholed, because a lot of people will make Tesla videos, and the next thing you know, you realize, crap, I have a Tesla channel, and that I can't cover anything else. Nobody will watch it. And so you have to be really deliberate about that on YouTube. And I admired people like Dagogo, who had he's younger than I am. He kind of had this figured out even back then. If you watch his videos, obviously he's gotten better at everything, but he was so good even all the way back then.
Well, it's funny you mentioned the Tesla videos, because when I started, the channel was a year into it, and we're mostly known for Tesla because we tore down the Model Y, had the Elon interview. Mm-hmm. And one of the things I wanted to do when I came aboard was to make us known, even though we still love Tesla, make us known mm-hmm. from not just a Tesla channel to an EV channel. And now we're trying to evolve and become a more engineering channel.
Right.
Our challenge is just all our hosts are real engineers here at Munro with real jobs. So they come and do our videos kind of as a courtesy. So they maybe not have as much time to prep as they would like, or enough time to really dive into it. So it's a juggling balance for us.
Yeah, it's quite a bit of, you mentioned the time you spend on script writing. I kind of wish we could have that luxury. Often it's almost off the cuff. We have working from an outline, and we get called out on that. But that's part of our channel, I guess. So you at least have a little more prep going on, and it shows. The quality of the video is there.
Well, that kind of goes both ways, because you guys also have an underlying business on top of of this, right? There's a whole business to Munro beyond and Associates beyond just the channel, which we don't have. So for us, if the views aren't there, if things start to dip, there's no other part to it. Like, it's the entirety of it. So that level of pressure is actually, I think, what makes it difficult for me. Because I mean, my wife stays at home with our kids predominantly. I have a team, I have salary, I have staff. I live in Southern California, which is a very expensive part of the world. High mortgage, everything costs a ton here. So there's a level of pressure as well. So I admire the fact that you guys have this cool business, and then this is something that you guys can share. And as far as the scripting and preparation goes, those I think are decisions that you can make. Like, you could come on quickly and have a quick episode, or maybe take a little bit of time and prep and Fiverr and Upwork. There's places where you can find a researcher, or writer. It doesn't have to be on site. It doesn't have to be onshore. It could be, there's different ways of doing it. That's what most people do. A lot of the YouTubers that I meet have offshore researchers and writers, and it's pretty common practice. So you'd be surprised how quickly you could kind of have those things that you're talking about. The stuff that you have already in place, that's the stuff you can't compete with. Like, no one's going to start an engineering organization and have 50 years experience and become an industry leader and that part you've got. And then this thing, I think, is more easy to fine tune.
And so I had two thoughts on that. I mean, first, from our perspective, yes, we are doing engineering and teardowns and writing reports for clients. And Eric will be out on the floor walking around, and he'll hear us talking amongst ourselves about, what we're seeing as we tear it into this. And he's like, "That's a video." And he would, grab us and say, "Okay, just talk about what you just were seeing on this part that you were taking apart." So that's the origin of some of our stuff. But one of the things I really admire about you, and one of the keys to making it as an entrepreneur is, and this is something Sandy is all over. You're all in. It's not just skin in the game; it's all of it. You can't, if you're doing something on the side as a half job, it comes off as a half job. When you're all in, then it comes out. It shows. It comes out in the video. You can see it, and so that's where Two Bit da Vinci, I think, as well as only a handful of other kind of quality YouTube content that's out there, has that advantage. So yes, there's pressure, but it's the pressure that it's like a pressure cooker. It creates that, using a mechanical engineering analogy, it's like a heat treat. You're in a hot furnace and then a deep quench, and now you have the toughness to be able to do it. And so that's what, the amateurs don't have that. They're not all in.
Yeah, that was kind of my thought process in 2021. I kind of felt like if I keep doing this on the side, it might be a missed opportunity that I should just go all in and give it a try. But I will say that you have to kind of recenter yourself and kind of double down on occasion, because, like, for example, for me, I travel a lot for various little things, either for videos or events or whatever it might be. So when I'm on travel, it's like, oh crap, we got to do a video. Like, quick, let me try to get something together. And those videos don't perform well, and you're like, damn, that really, it does just, you need to be like really, really dialed in, and it can be really easy to get off track as well. Like, our views, I wish were more consistent, for example. And I think part of that is, part of it is just understanding what people wanted to see and missing the mark. But also, I think our best performing videos are the ones where, there's very few exceptions to this, are the ones where I had, damn, that is a key insight. That, like, we had that aha moment where this is going to be a great video, and then it plays out that way. There was one video that I did I went to the Panama Canal, spent such a long amount of time putting together this episode on how they save water with every transit and stuff. It was a great video. Maybe my favorite video, and it didn't perform particularly well, which really hurts too. That's the double-edged sword. Like, I don't want to make it sound like YouTube is all glamour, because there's a lot of defeats as well, and some of those sting when you put your heart into it. If it's a quick turnaround video and it didn't do that well, you kind of move on. You don't worry about it. But when you put your heart into something and you take all that time, that could hurt.
It's a common theme I've heard from every YouTuber, big and small. Veritasium has some, he's done whole videos on that topic that, like, why is it that some videos take off? Whether it's the topic, the insight, it could be the thumbnail. And so, yeah, when a guy who's got 12 million plus whatever subscribers is still worried about inconsistent performance, it's part of the story here and maybe the issue with the platform. So there's part of that. And yeah, so we always like to talk about and put in front of people if you had a young person ask you, how could I get into this business? And then, as you mentioned, young people today a lot of them are looking at YouTube and other, influencer platforms and thinking that this is what they really want to do in life. So what advice would you give someone who really is motivated to try to do this?
The first thing I would say is when you pick your niche or what you want to cover, really take time to figure that out. I say that because when I first started the channel, I was in the middle of remodeling my kitchen, and I was really into woodworking, and I was doing all this woodworking. I was building my own cabinets and all this stuff. So the channel originally was going to be about projects and how to build stuff. But what I realized very quickly is I like to build stuff like twice a year. I can't make a channel about this week in and week out. If I needed to fix something, I'll go fix it, but I'm not trying to, spend every minute doing it. So I kind of quickly shifted from there. We had a solar video do well. Kind of realized, okay, maybe we'll talk about energy and sustainability and stuff, and we've shifted. But pick a niche that you can, 5 years from now, you could still be into and talking about, right? Again, this goes back to Cold Fusion being brilliant. He did not pigeonhole himself. He just tells great stories with beautiful music, which he produces himself. Just a talented dude. But he had a nice wide variety of options. So do that. And the second is pick something that you could just endlessly talk about, right? Like whenever I do these podcasts with Sandy, after we finish recording and we hit stop, Sandy and I will talk for like an hour and a half. The last time Eric was like, Sandy, you got to go. We got stuff to do. Come on, like hang up. But we'll just talk, right? Because Sandy could talk about this for hours. Same goes for me. Like we could talk about stories in our from our experiences. The problem that I have though is any video that I want to do, I have to go sit down for hours, like tens and 20s of hours doing research before I go and make the video. So the pain threshold or is the video good enough to make? And my wife and I talk about this, she'll have an idea. And I always tell her, do you want me to go disappear for 15 hours in research? Is it worth it? And she goes, no, damn, I kind of want to go to the park later. And forget it. Let's not make that video. Whereas what I'm really envious of is people who do things like sports, for example. Sports, it writes itself. All you really have to do is watch on occasion, stay up to date. And once you have that historical knowledge of what the teams look like and how the storylines, the next day there's a big trade. You could just hit the mic and go, I can't believe this trade happened. Here's the impact. I mean, it's going to change the entire landscape of the NBA, X, Y, and Z. You could just talk about it for an hour. Like that's what sports talk is. So that to me would be the ideal landing spot, is something that you could just imagine. If I said, okay, I'm going to hit the record button, go make an episode right now, go. Right. I can't do that because for us, I have to go research for so much. But if you can find a way to have something you love, it could be something that you can do for 5 years plus and not be bored of. And if it's something you could just talk about endlessly without, hundreds of hours of research, that is a winning combination. And when those things come together, I think those are the channels that kind of hit home runs.
So out of the hundreds of videos you produce, what topics do you enjoy most? Like what subject do you feel comfortable the most at?
Really good question. This is the challenge of being broad and just covering, it could be a plane one day and a train the next day. There's, you have to kind of go in. I would say aviation has always been a passion of mine. I find aviation fascinating. So, I made a video about how the Airbus A380, which is an engineering marvel, was ultimately kind of a failure and cost Airbus a lot of money. And it was just kind of I'm missing the mark in terms of the business model and not understanding the hub and spoke and direct flight models and the shifts that were going to happen. So I think my favorite episodes are the ones where we talk about a good idea. Vertical farming is another example of that, where it was positioned as like the savior. We can grow lettuce and stuff in vertical farms, indoors, anywhere in the world. It'll be great. And then the years have gone by, and you see all these bankruptcies, and you go, "That's this great idea. What happened?" And then you start figuring out like how it went wrong. And in a lot of ways, that's kind of engineering, right? I mean, you've mentioned teardowns and benchmarking in the Navy. What we did a lot of was like mishap response, or if a part failed, we try to figure out what happened. EIs, we call them, engineering investigations. So it's kind of that part of it. It's like, okay, this was supposed to be great, didn't work out. What happened? So those are probably my favorite. Trying to get to the bottom of why this potentially good idea didn't work out.
Yeah, we have a very similar things where that interest us and do well on our channel fall into that same kind of category, where you've got something that on a surface looks like it should have been a good idea. So why is it not come out the way we thought it would? And then other times there are things that appear to be passé and yet are very subtly brilliant. And that subtle brilliance caused them to break through and become hugely successful in the market. And often the subtle thing is out of sight. It's in the manufacturing process or in the energy used, or that it's not something that immediately is obvious until you do a more technical look at it. And that's where your channel comes in to help us with these events that occur and yet news coverage, but then there's something going on under the surface that isn't immediately obvious until somebody with a technical background does the research and shows us, here's the math, look, or here's the why. There's a simple this, then that, then this explanation. And those are the things that, as a viewer, I absolutely love about Two Bit da Vinci, that when I get a chance to see behind the scenes and gain this aha understanding of why it played out the way it did, and should I be worried about this kind of thing in the future, or is it all taken care of now? Those are the kinds of things that I like to learn when I'm flipping through YouTube channels.
I appreciate that. I think there is a definite connection between the fun that you like, if you really enjoy something, and how it'll perform. I have a joke with my wife, and I always tell her, when we publish videos, we publish in the morning. I know how a video will go by how keen I am to check the performance, right? If I have a video that I think is going to be really great, then I'm up before 5 a.m. We go out around 5 a.m. Pacific time, 8 o'clock, 7 o'clock your time, and I'll be looking and checking the numbers and stuff. And when it's a video I don't really believe in, all of a sudden it's 10:30. I have my coffee, and I'll check the numbers now. So in a way, you kind of know, right? It's that's the psychology of it. I mean, people make this seem complicated. Like you have to have this class, and there's a mathematical formula to follow to get view. Honestly, I think when you make something that you think is really was a blast, I think it comes off that way. And yeah, there's something about figuring out why something went wrong that I think appeals to people, for example.
So Munro is split on hybrids.
Mm-hmm.
Some people here love them. Some people here think they're a waste of time. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, this is a very contentious point. I was at the Everything Electric show, and I think it's the same thing. Most people are against them. I think they have their place. Now, there's a caveat though. First, I want a full electric drivetrain. I don't want a gasoline engine and transmissions and gear shifts and stuff. Like, I want the feel of a pure electric drivetrain, instant torque. I've gotten too used to that. I'm not driving a hybrid. Like, I drove the F-150 hybrid when the Lightning was unveiled in 2021 or whatever it was, and got a chance to meet with the chief engineer and stuff. I took an F-150 hybrid to the event that Ford had given me. It was unbearable. I mean, it was like 9 or 10 speeds, constantly shifting every second. It was driving me absolutely crazy. Then you get into the lightning, like, oh my God, this is incredible, right? So if you can do a pure electric drivetrain, kind of like the Volt did, and then you have a range extender generator, there might be a case for that. We saw the BYD Shark. I'd love to get your take on the BYD Shark. The BYD Shark is pretty brilliant. It has a 30 kilowatt hour battery pack, good for 50, 60 miles of range, which means potentially if you're charging every day at home, not bad. And then if you are towing, 8,000 pounds, and you've got the generator to keep that battery topped off. So I think depending on the use case, there's a place for it. Now, for a small, like a Honda Civic type size car, electric. Like, there's no reason to have a hybrid. I don't think you gain enough. It's not worth it. And I think battery prices have come to a point where it doesn't make sense. But for trucking, for things where that range is a problem, I see a select few places where I think it makes sense.
Well, I think in California, is that where you're at? Yeah, you've got a charging infrastructure that's pretty well advanced. And so charging is not really a big deal. That's not true everywhere. And so certainly hybrids help for that pain point where people are finding it hard time to get a charging station that's convenient. So just a background on me, that I did work on the Chevy Volt. I was one of the people that put that out, and I loved it. Absolutely. I've owned two of them. They're still running, over 150,000 miles on them. No problems at all. Anyway, I was not happy when they discontinued them. So, and I do think that the BYD Shark, which is essentially a beefed up, bigger, more powerful Volt type powertrain, it's mech'd a little differently than the Volt is, but the concept is essentially the same. An extended range electric kind of a vehicle. So when you're driving around town, you're commuting back and forth to work, it's all electric, and there's no shifting. You don't feel any. It's instant torque, no shifting. So all that's great. So I am personally a big fan of hybrids at this moment in time, and certainly, from looking backward, 2020 to now, I think hybrids make a lot of sense, especially for people who are not lucky enough to have a good charging network and convenient charging stations near them, rural areas. I've been driving electric now over a year, and almost two. We don't have a backup, right? I have nothing but electric vehicles in my family. I drive the vehicles I worked on. So I work on the Chevy Bolt, absolutely love it, and Cadillac Lyriq. So that's the cars in my family, and we absolutely love them and have had no trouble with them, including long trips. Haven't had really a significant problem charging. So I hope that people realize that that's a doable thing. But before the electric vehicles, I've owned hybrids and extended range hybrids, the 2 volts. So I really think there's a place for them. And anyone who's feeling uncomfortable or feels like they really don't want to spend 20 minutes or a half hour charging when they're on their trip, and they would rather just fill up with gas, and they feel more comfortable with that, I really do think hybrids are a good option for them. So anyway, that's my 2 cents on it.
Yeah, I can understand that. The infrastructure is catching up pretty quickly, and it's a chicken or the egg problem. I mean, no one's going to build more infrastructure if there aren't cars on the road. So that is part of the split. But I will say, in this new age of used Teslas, like we now have a healthy used market. Prices are so cheap. You can have an electric Model 3 long range for under like 18 grand probably at this point, which is incredible value. My first advice to people would always be, if you have 2 cars in your family, one of them is keep the truck or whatever you want, but get one electric car. Like, I think you'll save money, you'll love it, and you can have that second car, and then you can talk about when you switch that over sometime in the future. But it's hard to imagine that every family wouldn't benefit from one 250 plus 300 mile range, EV because it's incredible, right? I mean, performance, no maintenance. I've never had maintenance done on my two Teslas. I
Yeah,
love that.
wiper blades and tires.
That's right.
That's pretty much it. Yeah, and who doesn't need an extra $100 a month in your pocket by not having to pay for gas? And one thing I probably share with you is do not miss going to the gas station.
Me neither.
There was never a fun time of the week when I had to I have to go out to the gas station, fill up.
Yeah.
Stop on the way home.
I was never the person who'd wait at the Costco for 20 minutes to save 12 cents per gallon. I would just go to wherever is quiet. But the thought of like waiting around at a Costco to pump gas to me is absolutely insane. And I don't miss that at all.
No. So
as a Costco member, there will be no Costco slander.
I love Costco.
We do love it, but filling up there, I've never done it. I've just seen the lines. Looks to me, are these people that are complaining about waiting to charge or spending 20 minutes to charge? Because I think they're waiting about that or more for gas.
You get used to it though, and it doesn't even register. And once you make the switch, it'll be the same thing. I think this is again one of those human psychology things where what you're used to is just normal. You don't question it. You don't calculate how long you're spending fueling at Costco. But that shift to something new feels alien. It feels different. Even if it's unfounded, it's still a hard hurdle to overcome for people.
It is. Yeah. And I completely understand as a creature of habit myself.
Yeah.
That how it feels a little threatening to move on to something else. So anyway, I think we should probably wrap up because like I said, we are the kind of people who could love to talk about this stuff forever.
Hold on. Before we wrap up, I have a couple more questions.
All right, Eric.
So you drive two Teslas, right?
Yeah.
What excites you about the future electrification? Like, where do you think it's heading? Because we have this discussion all the time at Munro.
So, having had electric vehicles now for over 5 years, they just feel so normal, just so commonplace. It's not until like I had a gasoline Mazda, a new Mazda 3, like a brand new one as a rental car in Australia. Decent car. But it just drives you nuts how slow they are and all the shifting and the light turns yellow in an unknown country. I don't know what I'm doing in Australia. You floor it and it takes 8 seconds before any power comes on. So, I've just gotten used to electric vehicles. I think what I'm excited about now is new form factors. I'm glad that we have trucks and stuff, but you guys have seen the MG Cyberster. Where's that? Where's the two-door sports car? Why don't we have those? To me, I hate crossover SUVs. It's all we make. Every car is making a crossover SUV. And then that means that like Lucid's going to spend the next 5 years on the Gravity. So we won't have a cool two-door from them anytime soon. Tesla doesn't have anything. I think as much like the Humvee, the GMC, the Hummer EV is crazy, but we need crazy. We need to attract people who are looking for crazy. On the other side of the spectrum, for me, is sports cars. Like I want a two-door convertible electric vehicle. So whenever that is possible, I'd love to get one because I recently turned 40. I feel like I'm due for my midlife crisis at some point, and I'd love a EV sports car. So for me, it's the form factors. We need more fun form factors, not all just vanilla crossover SUVs, which I really can't stand. I think they're boring.
I love seeing the VW Buzz, that the old microbus, coming back as an electric vehicle. So that's sort of another form factor that is new in the EV space, but old in what we're used to.
So I will say it's a shame. I love that thing. I love the Buzz, especially the longer wheelbase for the US market, but it's not selling well. And this gets to one of the real frustrations that I have is even when companies do the right thing, they're ambitious, they build a platform and they build a good EV. And when it doesn't sell well, then the signal that we're sending to the OEMs is divest and go back to gas cars. But that's a shrinking market. And then it's this kind of death spiral. I do worry a lot about some of the legacy car makers, especially the American ones and the German ones. because of this kind of perceived idea that, you see, we spent billions, we made EVs, no one's buying them, we're going to go back. And then they go back and they realize those sales are just on the decline. And then the Chinese are about to come in with cars that are going to blow people's minds. I'm a little worried about the industry overall, because I wish, for example, the Buzz, I wish it sold incredibly well. It was sold out everywhere. It's not the case. Like, they're getting marked down dramatically.
They made I think, a gigantic mistake with the size of the battery. The battery is too small, and so it has an electric range of 235 miles. That was the right electric range in 2016 when the Chevy Bolt came out. Even then, it was too short. It was not enough, and so that might be perfect for a German vehicle, but if you want to try to sell it in the U.S., the minimum value these days is 320, and the competitors they're up against are pushing 400 and more, and so it's a beautiful car. Execution is amazing. They just set their target too low. I feel bad for them, because I think that it could really be selling dramatically better than it is.
And I like how they did fun colors. Like, no one does fun colors anymore.
Right. So they got 99% of it right, and then just one feature.
I'll add one more issue for me. It's just I think it was the price. So the second, disrupt. We have a couple minutes, Eric.
Yeah, we
do.
So the second disruptive, because you're right, we could talk about this for hours. I can already tell, Paul, and maybe we will in the future. But the second disruptive thing that's happening is that electric vehicles have kind of democratized performance. So the Germans, for it particularly, even more, the Japanese, I think, are just engineering, manufacturing masters. But the Germans have always held the higher performance benchmark. So you buy the BMW 3 Series because you want that inline turbo, and it gets 330 horsepower. But those days are gone. You can make that very easily in an electric car, and any base model can do that too. So the things that used to prop up these values, why a BMW costs so much money, those are kind of eroding, because now I can buy I'm trying to think of any base car that's really zippy and fast and fun. So as the Chinese cars start coming into the market, well, I think what's going to be very difficult to justify these high price tags, because there's I think Zeekr has a van. It's not quite as fun and vibrant as the Buzz, but it's very similar. Really nice van concept. Maximized EV efficient space inside, and it'll cost like half, even with tariffs and stuff. I mean, I think it'll still undercut these prices, and it'll be just like when Toyota showed up in the 70s. Originally, we'll have issues with it. It'll be a Chinese car you're not going to trust. After a while, there's going to be on the roads, and they're going to sell in huge volumes. And I think the future of the car is going to come downstream, and more stuff will be free. Heated and ventilated seats used to be a Mercedes S-Class feature, and now, like, the most base Chinese EVs have them. It's not even a thing. It's just standard. So it's harder to justify these packages. I don't know. Again, the Germans in particular, I think, will suffer from this, because people who are in that segment might not want to pay that premium for stuff that they can get down market in the future. But I don't know. I don't envy being in the automotive landscape. I think it's a tough place to be.
It's always been tough.
No, you're right.
And it's not getting easier. That's for damn sure. Yeah.
Another controversial topic. The Dodge Challenger EV. Your thoughts on fake engine noises and EVs?
So I actually liked how it was done on the Ioniq N, the Ioniq 5N. It's incredibly, you believe you're in like a dual clutch car. Like, it actually blips the engine, and it feels like you're shifting gears, which is silly, because that's actually a negative. You don't want that. Like, if a gas car could not do that, they would not do that. But here we are. And but the noise also was kind of believable. Now, it's kind of a gimmick that I enjoyed during a little Hyundai track day that I experienced it on. Would I leave it on after that? No, I wouldn't. I mean, again, I think there's I don't know.
It's something to show your friends, and then you turn it off when you're really driving yourself.
Right. And if it's something you can turn on and off, why not have it? Like if, you're not paying for it or there's not a premium to do it. The Challenger is, again, they really don't believe their customers are ready for EVs, and I think they have all these kinds of things in place. The car, I think, is just not good enough as an EV. That's kind of its fundamental problem. So they, it's a first generation product. They got to iterate and try to make a better, compelling EV, because otherwise they'll say, "You see, we made an EV, no one bought it." Well, it's not great. I mean, you're up against really fierce competition, and your car is just not good enough. It's not that they don't want EVs. Maybe they do. Maybe they don't. We'll see. But
Have you had a chance to see it yet? We haven't had a chance to review it yet.
I've seen it. I haven't driven it. I just watched a lot of the review videos and stuff, and it's a common problem. It's hard to make great EVs in an age where some of these guys really have it figured out at this point, and you can't come in half-assed. We kind of mentioned you can't do this part-time. You got to be all in.
No.
If you're not all in, you're going to make cars like the Charger EV, and it's the Challenger EV, and it's just going to need to be a little bit better to be competitive.
So what car have you seen lately that you liked or gave you hope or inspired? Because like we recently had the Polestar 3 in, and Paul actually took it for a drive and really enjoyed it.
I did really like it, but it also had essentially an efficiency issue. So it's a really good competitor, but like you say, the strength of some of the competition that's out there, the benchmarks that are out there, are going to make life very difficult for the Polestar 3 to break through. It has features about it that are world class. The in-cabin noise is world class. It's very, very quiet, very comfortable, very intuitive to drive. It just is not as efficient. It has the same efficiency numbers as the Rivian, which has a much bigger frontal area, and so it has a huge battery and doesn't go as far as even my Lyric, and my Lyric is now a few years old. So that you can't be competing against 3-year-old vehicles. You have to come out with something that is going to be able to compete with the best that's out today. So I'm afraid they're going to have an uphill battle with the
They nail the design, and they have a clear aesthetic. If you ever see them at a car show, their booth will always look incredible. Their cars are all in white. There's a kind of a consistency to the messaging and stuff. They're trying to be a premier brand as far as Chinese brands go. But again, like we mentioned, it's going to be tough because you're competing with the Mercedes and the 100-year-old established brands. So it is a tough place to be. And I do think that they need to bring maybe a little bit more in-house, have more tighter integration, tighter vertical integration of all components, and system-wide overhauls to make that efficiency numbers better. One car that I actually really love, and Paul, you'll appreciate this, the Silverado EV work truck. I love that they just have the one pack size. You don't have to, you're going to get that 212 kilowatt hour pack.
Absolutely monster.
Which is
huge.
wild.
Yeah.
But if there's one form factor where I want that kind of insane pack size, it's in a pickup truck. Maybe get a little camper, go on holiday. And so,
the one EV where, because of that pack, towing is actually an option.
Right. And the Cybertruck just doesn't have that big of a pack. The Lightning doesn't have big of a pack. And that, I think, to me, was a really clever move on GM's part. And the car is reasonably priced. I think I can get a work truck Silverado for, I want to say, less than a Buzz, for example. So when you put it into those in those terms, the value proposition of the Buzz just feels like it's just not quite there. Or maybe the Silverado is incredible value. One of those two.
Yeah, there was quite a lot of work into making that work truck be a true work truck. That and again, it was an attempt to show people, hey, we can do things that you thought we couldn't do electrically. That we're going to go after something, a market, and it's a huge market, but go after a market that everyone thought can't be done electrically because batteries just aren't there yet. And they're like, oh, well, how about 200 kilowatt hours? And so suddenly, maybe it is doable. And so, we saw that, YouTube videos showing actually the range of that truck pulling a 6,000 pound trailer with a big frontal area has the same range as an F-150 gas truck. So you're stopping to pump gas every bit as often as the Silverado is stopping to charge. Now, of course, it's the fastest charging vehicle in existence.
Right.
But filling a 200 kilowatt hour pack takes a while. So
yeah, that's true. And I think there was an era where charging EVs on road trips was cheaper. Now we're probably about the same. Like that benefit is kind of gone, and
it is that. I mean, charging companies want to make money, and the volumes are not where they had hoped they would be because everyone had these exponential growth curves in mind, and now the growth. And I think, thankfully, the growth has been steady.
Mm-hmm.
People don't do well with exponential growth curves, right? You don't want to just have that big a disruption because it is a disruption to change how you manufacture cars that fast. So thankfully, the growth curve has been more linear. And that's going to give people time, companies time to retool, and people time to change their way of thinking. So I hope that continues and we don't have, disruptive kind of growth curves for EVs.
Yeah, there's so many moving pieces. One is battery manufacturing. If battery manufacturing doesn't grow in line, then that's a limiting factor. We just literally can't build more EVs. So luckily that's moving as well. Then there's infrastructure. Can the grid cope? Do we have enough chargers? So it's not like going from a tube TV to a flat screen LCD TV. That disruption took no other technological advances really to pull off. But the EV one is complex. And I'm with you. I think it's a healthy place to be where we are. And don't be surprised if we do see tick ups, especially as battery prices keep coming down. The battery manufacturing is insane.
Yeah.
And if prices start coming down, cheaper EV options start coming out, it could completely shift. At this point,
Right.
EVs are just expensive, and we don't have any cheap models. That's just the reality. So
there is the Equinox, the Chevy Equinox. You can get them for lease around $200 a month.
That's wild.
So that kind of thing makes suddenly you start adding up. Wow, I spend almost that on gas alone today. So maybe EVs might make financial sense. Yeah. So we're right now at the crossover point. 2025 is the two lines on the curve on the graph crossing right now. And 2026, 2027, the value proposition just keeps getting better for EVs. And so that's what Goldman Sachs and the big banks we were all in 2017. These big reports came out and said, hey, this is coming. And, that was when I was at GM, and they saw the writing on the wall that these two curves cross in 2025. And it takes us 3 years to get cars on the road. We got to get going now. And so, auto companies that waited until 2019 to get started are in deep trouble right now.
So, and there's Toyota and Honda that still haven't gotten started.
Yeah,
it's interesting.
Although Honda's Prologue is doing really well, although that's one of the vehicles that I worked on. with
I mean,
GM.
it's the ultimate symbol. Like I have family. I have family that will only buy Toyotas and Hondas, right? And then as they get maybe a little more affluent, maybe it becomes the BMWs and the Mercedes. But Hondas and Toyotas, like it's just the perception of quality engineering. It's just strong, and it's a shame that the Prologue is not even it's not really even a Honda, and it's selling so well. Because then in Honda's mind, they should be thinking we're absolute idiots. We should have had the Civic equivalent EV and been on generation 2 at this point, making it better in every way, bring down the price, adding more stuff, all the lessons learned. They should be on Civic EV Gen 2, and we're not even at 1. So we'll see. Those are brands that I do love, and I love, I love their offering, and I hope they figure this out, because like you mentioned, if you start yesterday, you're still years away from having something on the road, and it's probably not going to be great the first time around, right?
Yeah, right. It takes a while, to a generation or two, to get learn all the subtleties of producing a great electric vehicle, which is why we're seeing BYD doing so well. I mean, they produced some real junk back in the early 2000s. And I was in China then and saw them struggle. And now they're really making some of the best cars in the world. And it's if you're in the auto business in the US, you're not paying attention to this, then good luck to you.
Yeah, one thing I found was interesting is they'll start with 200 models. A lot of startups, capital raise to try out your vision for what an EV should look like, and they fully embrace that. And then they know that from that 200 or whatever they start with, 18 really great brands will emerge, right? So maybe it's BYD, and maybe it's Zeekr, and maybe it's a couple of
And
these other
Geely,
brands,
yep.
Geely, right? And when that happens, we'll just think, oh, there's these brands, but what we don't realize is those are the best of the best. It's like evolution, survival of the fittest, leading to these really great brands. And when they start making it their way to shore, when they start building factories in the US and these cars come out, we're going to be in for a rude awakening.
Yep, that's the status right now of the car business on the planet. So
Yeah.
anyway, I do think we should wrap up. I really appreciate, Ricky, that taking the time to come on and talk with us, give us the insight both from a YouTube content creator perspective and your perspective on the direction that the economy and the world of EVs and technology is going. Really appreciate it.
Absolute pleasure. Thank you so much, Paul. It's good meeting you and chatting with you as well. Eric, always a pleasure. Thanks for having me on. And yeah, something that I think is really nice and refreshing. Good conversations.
Yeah. Thanks, Liam.